Does your strong-willed child get stuck in what seems like an endless loop of negotiating? This is something that happens so frequently, and we can deal with it in a way that's healthy and constructive so that they feel heard and that they matter, and we don't give them any negative connotations to who they are as people, but also that we don't spend 3/4 of our day just negotiating with our children. So if we think about some of the things that contribute to having strong-willed kids who just want to continue negotiating and negotiating and negotiating. So the first thing is just the fact that they're strong-willed means that they're somebody who feels really connected to what it is that they need. So they feel like there needs to be a reason why they can't have what they want. And that's valid. Like, we don't want to take that away from them. We want them to keep that persistence, the connection to what's important to them, the belief that what they want matters. Like, we want them to keep all of those things. Now, where we can make that more intense in what I think is a good way is when you are actually practicing any kind of the kind of progressive styles of parenting. So gentle, respectful, responsive, peaceful, all these types of parenting that are kind of like the newer versions of parenting. What we end up doing in those places is we're giving our child a message that their needs matter, also that their happiness is important to us. So if they really take that message in, it's like their needs matter and their happiness matters to us, then when we try to tell them, oh no, we can't do X, Y, and Z, they're basically just saying, oh no, but see, you've got to understand that I'm not happy and I know my happiness is important to you. So let's keep going until we can sort it out, right? And so you can see how I'm saying it does make it more intense, but it's actually in a good way. We just need to take that next step to actually get to a place where we don't spend all that time negotiating. So the first thing I encourage you to do with a child who is endlessly negotiating is actually to stop and look for what it is that's actually really important to them. So rather than just taking what they're looking for at face value, so it's like, they're asking for more time on electronics, they're asking for something particular to eat, they're asking for you to play, whatever the thing is that they're asking you for. If it's a specific thing that they're asking you for, then that means that we're not actually clear on what is the need underneath of that. So what we're looking for when we're thinking about needs are things that are really universal, that you would be able to, these are the kinds of things that you would be able to organise for your children. You'd be able to do something about it, whether you're living in a country that has first world provisions, whether you're living in the desert, whether you've got lots of money or not very much money. These are the things that are actually just universal experiences. So if we think about things like fun, connection, to matter, novelty, so like finding something new and interesting, consistency, stability, all these things, they're like the basic core needs that people have. So when our children are saying, but I really need you to buy the next toy, our first step is to look at why do you need that toy. So even if your answer's no, you have a very specific reason why your answer's no. Before we get there, we just want to get to what is important to your child and why is it important to them. So if they're saying, you need to play with me, before saying, actually, I need to get the dinner sorted, you can go into, okay, so how come you need play? Are you bored? Are you needing some fun? Do you feel like we're not feeling connected? Like, what is it that we're getting really clear on what's underneath? And one of the easiest ways to know if you've gotten to the root cause of it is if you see lots of options. If you can see only one option, so I'll often pull myself up when I realize I'm seeing the reason they can't have what they want, there's a particular block in the way of that. In actual fact, there's no block in the way of a universal need. It's just a matter of finding a creative solution. So if we look for what is something that's fundamental that helps them to really get clear on what it is that they need. Now, the reason I ask you to start there is partly because when we do that, we're showing our children that their needs actually matter to us. So we're not judging is your request that we go to the library today, is that actually valid or not? We're not judging that. We're just finding out what is important to them and why. So that way they feel like they matter from the get-go, and that can make the negotiation process a lot easier. It also helps your child to get into a more flexible and open-minded place before we even go into what we can and can't do. So that's our first part. The second part we want to do is be really clear on what is in the way. So if your child asks you to play, often what we will do is we'll say things like, oh, well, we've got plenty of time to play after dinner, or we played so many hours today, or but don't you want to play with your brother or sister? Now, do you notice that in all of those examples, the basic message is you shouldn't want this right now? And this is mainly because in our culture, we're very uncomfortable with boundaries. And so what we try and do is we say, if you have a need and I say no to that need, then that makes me a bad person. So instead of me being a bad person, what we do is we agree that your need is not appropriate. And I say that with a funny voice because it still agitates me that this is part of our culture, but it is, right? It's this idea that we're going to agree whether your need is valid, and then I will make an action to make that need met. So instead of focusing on whether the need is valid, we know the need is valid, we just don't know if the request is feasible. So we want to go into what is our need that's in the way. So it might be, I need to relax. I've had a really tough day and I need some time by myself. And I would love to play with you, but right now I can't, right? Or I need to cook the dinner because if I don't cook the dinner, then everybody is going to be really quite cranky, because if we don't eat on time, then all of us get a little bit cranky. And so you can see how we're getting into this idea that this is what's in the way. And then if we know in the first step, we knew that the need was fun or connection or novelty, something along those lines, then what we can see is what can we do that works for both of those, to both of those needs at the same time. So if the need is for connection, they may want you to play Barbies, but it might need to be that they're sitting at the bench while you cook and they're going to read you a story. Right? And that may not be their preferred way of connecting, but the more they get into this idea that I am getting what I'm needing in a way that works for my parent as well, the more likely they are to be more creative about something that would work better, but take into consideration the constraints that we have. So, that's the two first steps. So getting clear on what it is that they're genuinely needing, and then also what is in the way. That then gives your child the ability to come up with more strategic solutions. So kids are so much more creative than we are, because they're so much younger. Their brains are just so much more creative. And they have more time, right, than we do, and they have a lot of incentive to figure out something that works, because they know if they don't, they're the ones that are going to end up with the need not being met in these particular examples we're talking about, right? So they have a lot of incentive to figure it out. So often, if you can give them if you give them help to get clear on what they need and give them really clear information about what's in the way, they can often come up with better solutions than we can anyway. So those are our first two steps. Now, in the third step, when we're still going a bit of back and forth and it's just not kind of working, because, it would be lovely if this worked first go every time, but it kind of doesn't work first go every time. So when we're still getting in a bit of a back and forth, we want to make sure that you're giving clear signals with the words you're saying, the tone of voice, and your body language that their needs matter. So it can be things like, sweetie, if I could do what you wanted, I would do that. And so you can see how in that case, I really feel, the tone really feels quite sad that I'm not able to do what they're asking for. And you can see how with my words, I'm saying I would if I could, like this, I'm not able to do it. And so then you can also do this. It doesn't have to be in a sad tone. You can do warm and loving. You can do cheeky. You can even do sarcastic. But so long as the tone doesn't come across as that they're in the wrong or they're a problem. So the tone is, and even that we want to avoid any tone that feels like it's uncomfortable for us to be having this boundary. It's going to take some practice, so don't worry if you don't get it right the first time. But notice we're in that space of, this is just where we're at. And if there was a solution, we'd take it. But right now, we just don't have a solution that would work. So that really gives them a sense that their needs matter and that we want to keep working together as a team to make sure that we can get everybody's needs met. It's just that right now, that's not going to work for us just in this moment. So the next thing we want to do is don't negotiate if you don't want to. So if they ask you once and you help them get clear on what they need, you give them clear information about what you need that's in the way of that, if they keep going, whether that's the second ask or the 27th ask, you are allowed to say, sweetie, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Right? And you can say that, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I am trying to concentrate on cooking the dinner. You can say, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I'm getting frustrated. You can say, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I'm feeling like you're not taking into account what's important to me. Right? These are all really valid reasons for you to not want to talk about it anymore. And that doesn't mean that you want to shut the conversation down when it's being constructive. But if you're in a position where it's not feeling good for you, we don't want to set up, if we continue having these conversations where we don't want to have them and we continue having them, the vibe we give is, I can't stop doing something that is not good for me because otherwise I will cause you damage. That's the vibe. And in a lot of cases, that's what we're thinking deep down, even if we're not connected to it in that moment. It's like, I can't be a good mother and stand up for my needs, or I can't be a good parent to you I can't look after myself without giving you a message that who you are is a problem. And that's not a great message. So instead of doing that, we want to stop when we need to stop. And then after the fact, we're going to say, I'm really sorry we couldn't keep talking until we found a way that worked for both of us. How was that for you? And so we're reopening the conversation. Again, that tone is only one option of the tones you could use, but we're wanting to basically reopen it when we're next able to. And maybe you might, if the issue was you felt like they were pushing and they weren't respecting what you needed as well, you might say, look, I really would like to talk about that, but I really want to feel like we're on the same team and that what's important to me is also important in the solution we find. It's totally okay to just bring that conversation back open at a time that suits you. So we're not talking about harsh boundaries that are like it's a consequence for them not participating correctly. What we're talking about is boundaries that are about, if I'm not comfortable, then this is not a conversation we want to proceed with. So this has been hopefully really helpful. Some of the stuff we covered can bring up some baggage as well. So if there's anything that doesn't sit well with you or you have any questions about the technique, please feel free to pop them in the comments or you can email me. And I'd also like to let you know that I have a webinar called Helping Your Strong-Willed Children Handle Not Getting What They Want. I'll get it right at the end. It's a new one, obviously. And we're going to talk about in that one is the how to, what to say, what to do, how to get through those big feelings that strong-willed kids have when their things are not going their way. So we want to look for the ways that we can help them to have the resilience but not give up their persistence, not give up on looking after their own needs as well as other people's. So if you'd like to come along to that webinar, you can register at jodithornton.com/webinar, and I will see you there. Thank you so much for watching.